Hi, folks. We're going to get started here on an important topic: 3 signs mom or dad may need long-term care. Now, that obviously could be any loved one, but we're just kind of generalizing and saying mom or dad. And so, want to get right into it today. But as always, we're going to do a quick disclaimer here and just say when there's specific information that you need, you should get specific legal advice. So don't try to take anything that we talk about today and just apply it using self-help. We should always make sure that you're getting specific legal advice, and that's what we're here for. So your specific needs might not fall in exactly what we're going to talk about today, but we're always going to throw in that disclaimer that call us when you need us, because you should get specific advice for your specific circumstances. Just a little bit about us, just some general qualifications. These are the 3 attorneys that are here, all very qualified. I'm lucky to have Kelly King-Penner and Melissa Dixon that are part of our team, along with all of the non-attorney team, which we rely on so heavily because they're so talented in their individual roles within the firm. It's one of the nice things about what we do here is that it's not just the attorney. So a lot of law firms are actually very attorney-centric, and so everything is the attorney. Well, we have been able to find some really talented and capable people that don't have a law license, and we rely heavily on that as part of our process to make sure, yes, when you need an attorney for anything that requires a law degree, such as going into court or something like that, of course we have the 3 attorneys, but we've just got a great team of non-attorneys too. So we're going to get right into it today. So based on the topic of, the 3 warning signs, and obviously there could be a lot more warning signs than this, but this is, when I thought about it, okay, what are the top 3? And of course, like I say, there could be many, many more as far as what we're talking about here. But the top warning signs, these are really difficult situations when any of these are happening, and it really tells me that we probably need a higher level of care. This can be difficult because a lot of times families think, well, we want mom or dad to remain as independent as possible, but independence comes with some danger. And so if there is any of these behaviors, any of these things happening, then we really got to think about a higher level of care, whether that's bringing in more caregivers, whether it's an independent living type setting, whether we need to look at a memory care type setting, which is sort of a locked facility, whether we need to look at nursing home, different things. But the top one or top 3, I'm not going to order them. They're in no particular order, but wandering is certainly one. And so this is also dangerous because, especially when we have a married couple. And so we have a married couple and husband's been taking care of wife for years, or wife's been taking care of husband for years, and it just doesn't, it's not even, you can't even fathom anything other than that. They just take care of each other. And then when one of them experiences some memory loss or dementia or things like that, it just seems natural for the spouse to take care of them. But what we have to remember is, if it gets to the point where the one that has the memory issues could get confused enough where they might wander away, that you can't watch somebody 24 hours from home, especially, we've got a married couple, they're both in their late 80s. We're expecting the spouse who's 87 years old to provide 24-hour care and 24-hour supervision to the other spouse, and at some point you got to sleep. And so I've had we hear so many stories, and you might not notice it as much as I do, because I hear, when I obviously pay very much attention to these stories, but it seems like once a week we hear about an elder that's missing. And especially as winter starts to come and it's getting cold out, this is so dangerous. And so when we've noticed this, whether it's in the grocery store and you kind of look, you're just turning to get the bread, and all of a sudden your spouse or your parent has wandered away and you lost them for a little bit, or whether it's at home and they just go out to the mail, and next you know the neighbors bringing somebody by, or worse, the police have brought your spouse or your parent home to you. This is a real strong warning sign that we need a higher level of care, and possibly look at a different living setting. I know that's difficult to hear. It's just it's so dangerous not to have this situation where we have the protection for this, because even in the summer, even in the fall, it's dangerous, and we see this all the time of missing seniors and the disastrous consequences that come from that. Obviously, if they still have access to a car or if they have their car keys and things like that, that can be really dangerous. And so the wandering or the confusion there can be really difficult, and that's a sign that we need a higher level of care. The next one is sort of a very specific one, and that's aggressive behavior. And with the aggressive behavior, it's something that we have to think about, because this is particularly difficult. Certainly, when basically anytime the person with memory issues or some form of dementia is living with family, because family's not, I don't think, prepared for the idea of aggressive behavior. And this is just something that, boy, that's not your loved one. You know that this is the disease that is coming out. And so when we have the most common example is going to be a husband and wife, right? So we're going to have a husband and wife, and one is showing aggressive behavior. And if you think about this, sometimes I try to put myself in the shoes of the person that has the dementia, and try to put myself in the shoes of that person his brain is not telling them all of the details that they need. So imagine if you woke up one day and you're in your house, or you're in your bed, or you're somewhere in your house, and you wake up and there's a strange person in your house. Do you think you might show some aggression? Do you think you might show some aggression if there was a stranger in your house? Well, frankly, a lot of folks that have some form of dementia or memory loss, they're going to have some times there, or at least if it gets aggressive enough, they're going to have some times where they might recognize the person as a loved one. They might not be able to specify that it's a spouse or a daughter, or a husband or a wife, or whatever it is. They might not be able to articulate that, but they know this is a good person that's protecting them. They know this is a good person that's caring for them, and they react accordingly. But then there's those times where they don't know that. And so this is so dangerous. Okay, so this is so dangerous when somebody doesn't recognize them as a spouse, as a family member. And there could be other times where there's aggressive behavior. I'm not going to limit it to that, but that's a very common example that we see where somebody's aggressive, and we may not even know in the instant. We may not know that that's the issue, that they don't recognize you as a loved one. They don't recognize you as a family member. That may never come to light, because they're not going to articulate that. They're not going to say, I don't know you. They might not show that at all. They just might say, hey, this person's telling me what to do. They're telling me to go to the bathroom or get in the shower. Why is this stranger telling me this, right? This is a very difficult situation, and they may never, frankly, they're not going to articulate it to say, I don't know you. What are you telling me that for? They might just respond aggressively because of the way that the disease acts and the way the brain is now trying to solve problems. And so it may be that, it may be something else. I'm just trying to give that as an example of how things can lead to a form aggressive behavior. But once that starts happening, first of all, I've seen so many times where we have somebody that has aggressive behavior and they still have guns in the house, or they still have other things that are accessible to them that could cause somebody else harm. But even just the matter of, we've got two mid 80-year-old people, and they can really hurt each other. If it doesn't matter if it's the woman or the man, they could cause all kinds of trouble, or fall on top of each other, or fall down, things like that. And so the bottom line is, at that point when there's aggressive behavior, I really strongly believe that we have to think very, very seriously about changing the living arrangements, and either looking towards a memory care, assisted living, looking towards, possibly independent living, but that's less likely. Maybe there'd be an appropriate setting that would be adult foster care, but we really have to probably look at a different setting. And of course, nursing home would be an option in that case too. So it's actually very difficult. And one of the things that I tell folks, that once it's on the record, once there's a police report, once there's a medical report, it's going to be really hard to find an appropriate care setting for that person. So once it's, and I don't want to be where we're not telling these things, but if we can get them in the right setting and get their medications right, and we're getting them away from familiar settings, where familial settings where they might act more aggressively than they would to somebody in a nurse's uniform or something like that, then often we can stabilize that. But if it gets too far before we look for alternative living arrangements, then often we have real difficulty in finding a placement for that person. So recently I was talking to a social worker, and she was at her wit's end about trying to find a placement for somebody that had shown behavioral issues, shown some aggression. And she said, "Bob, I think you think that my job is easy." And I said, "Oh, absolutely not. I do not think your job is easy. It's incredibly difficult to find placement in that setting." And so in that situation where there's already on the record an indication that somebody's aggressive or has shown some behavioral issues, it is so difficult to find that. And in that particular case, we're looking, it's going to be an hour away for the person, to find an appropriate place. And so, and the reason why we weren't able to find better living situation for them is because it'd gotten so far along, and we let it go, and we ignored the situation, and we knew that there was aggressive behavior. And I'm not saying we, because we made the advice of dealing with this sooner, but the family kind of ignored the aggressive behavior and let it get to the point where there was doctor statements, and there maybe was even a police report or something like that. And it got to the point where, okay, you're going to have a hard time finding any care facility that's going to take a person in that setting. And we're going to find somebody. We have to. That's what folks do. But it gets very difficult. And in this particular case, the person's probably going to be living an hour away until we can find a place to transfer them that's going to get them closer. And that's the goal. But the point on that is, if we address it sooner, if we get the living situation settled sooner, we can maybe play with the medications a little bit more. We can make sure that the setting is going to be calm, and address it before it gets to the point where nobody's going to take somebody that needs care. And I've had cases where the person was a teddy bear. The person was not aggressive anymore at all, but they had it in their record. They had it in their record that they one time were, and that there was a medical report or a police report or something like that. And this hadn't been for a year. The person was just as gentle as can be, the sweetest old, man that you'd want to meet, and just very gentle. But at one point during the progression of his disease, he had shown aggression, and it got into the record, and it was still very difficult. Now, fortunately in that, one of the things that I appreciate about the team that we have at Mannor Law Group is that we had team members that had relationships with people in the care settings in a skilled care facility. And so we were able to use our relationships to explain to a variety of care settings, to say, look, I know what the record says, but this is what we've experienced for the last year. And so, give us the benefit of the doubt here. Why don't you go check them out? Why don't you go see them? Whereas a lot of times they wouldn't even do that. They wouldn't even take that level, because they were going to just look at the record and says, well, behavioral issues, no, that's an absolute no. And so Fortunately, again, great team that we have, they had relationships with folks in different care settings, and we were able to say, you know what, I understand why you would be reluctant here, but just go see him. Go see this gentle old man and see if he would be a good fit for your care facility. And in that case, we were able to put him someplace that was going to be suitable and convenient for the family and all of that. So just, you know, something to think of. And the bottom line is, I think it's a big red flag. As soon as we start seeing these aggressive behaviors, I really think that we need to act more quickly and not ignore that, because it's potentially a danger for the spouse, a danger for the family member, but also the more it gets documented, the harder it is to get the proper care that we need. And then, of course, the big one is going to be falling or other, you know, other signs of that we need just a higher level of care. So falling, oh boy, is it hard, you know, to in any setting. And so really we have to look at it when we're looking at a care setting. Well, first of all, you know, there's different levels of falling, right? So one of the things is I always ask, oh, well, mom fell. Okay, well, you know, has anybody gone into the house and looked for fall risk stuff? Is there loose rugs? Is there dogs that get under feet, cats that get under feet? Is mom still taking the laundry up and down the staircase because the laundry's in the basement? Okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing that anymore. So there's that level of fall risk where it's, hey, maybe we can get some help in the home. Maybe we can look at the home and say, how do we make this less fall, you know, less likely to cause falls. But then there's the fall risk where somebody's just falling all the time, or that there's just, you know, even with a safe environment. And then we maybe have to look at some kind of care setting where they can really, you know, work on that and be very responsive to that. So sometimes we are going to be looking at maybe, you know, the possibility of using some kind of assisted living, nursing home type of a thing. Certainly, if we bring caregivers in the home, the person's going to be less likely to climb on the chair to reach the cereal box or whatever it is, or to try to prepare meals or things like that. So care in the home can often certainly make improvements on the falling issue too. One of the things, and this is such a difficult thing for families to address, because I know that families are, they care for their loved one, they care for their mom, they care for their dad. They want to do what's best for them, and they're doing their absolute best. And this was particularly true when it's a spouse. All right, so let's in this case, let's say it's the husband now that needs care, and the wife says, you know, I've been caring for him, I've been cooking him meals, I've been, you know, taking care of him for 40, 50 years, 60 years, whatever it is. And then I'm just going to continue to care. I don't care. I can take care of it. I'm going to do it. You know, first of all, I think we should get the spouse some help always, because one of the things I say there is, look, in that case, dad's going to be better off if mom doesn't die trying to care for him, right? And I know that sounds blunt or maybe too upfront about it, but that's the reality. That we know that the caregiver spouse dies most of the time. The healthy spouse dies first most of the time. So when we have a spouse that needs care, and then we have what we call a caregiver spouse, the statistics tell us that the majority of time, more than 1 in 2, it's the caregiver spouse that dies first. So even in that situation where we are, dad is getting good care, we need to provide some assistance to mom. We need to get some home care in there. We need to get some family care in there, because we, you know, nobody can take care of somebody for 24 hours a day. That's a shift of 3 people we'd normally have to care for somebody. And so somebody even younger isn't going to be in a position to be able to take care of somebody for 24 hours a day and wake up in the middle of the night to take care of them, not get good sleep, all those types of things. But imagine now that it's an 82-year-old or an 87-year-old, and now they're having to wake up at 3 a.m. to help their husband to the bathroom, or to, you know, do any of those things. We got to get them some help. All right. But having said that, even though, there's lots of headstrong people that we work with. I like headstrong people. I come from a long line of headstrong people. And so the issue that comes up is where mom says, no, it's fine, I'm taking care of dad, but dad keeps going to the hospital. If dad keeps going to the hospital, that's a red flag for me that, okay, no, we need a different level of care, whether we need care brought into the home or we need to look at assisted living or nursing home or adult foster care or independent living, whatever it is. But if dad keeps I call it the yo-yo, right? The yo-yo. We're home, hospital, home, hospital, rehab, home, hospital, rehab, home, hospital, home. Okay, no, this is bad for dad, it's bad for mom, it's bad for daughter, it's bad for son, it's bad for the hospital because they you know, the hospitals, when they have readmissions, they lose money on that. And so it's bad for everybody. And so at that point we have to say, okay, we probably have to look at a different setting. This is just not good for anybody. It's definitely not good for dad. It's not good for the person that needs the care. But then one of the things that tells me that we need more care, whether it be care brought into the home or care outside of the home, is when the reason why dad went to the hospital or the reason why dad fell was because of dehydration, or the reason my mom went into the hospital was because of dehydration. As soon as we have a bed sore, I think that's the end of the, we have to get extra care. Bed sores are so terrible. It's just such a bad thing to suffer from, and they're so hard to heal because if somebody is immobile, they can't really get around very well, and they're sitting on their bottom all the time, or they're laying on their bottom, and we get a bed sore there or some kind of sore that just isn't healing. It's so difficult to deal with, and it's so difficult to get them to heal, and we're gonna need caregivers. We can't just rely on mom to turn dad over every 15 minutes or whatever it's going to take. And so many people die from the complications of bed sores. And so if we have a bed sore, that tells me we need a higher level of care than we're getting. And so if we're in independent living and we're getting bed sores or we're getting dehydrated, that means we need a higher level of care. If we're in assisted living and we're getting bed sores, I'm going to say, let's move out of that assisted living. And so we may say, oh, but you know, we really like this, you know, person that's at the front desk at the assisted living. It's about the care. If we're getting bed sores and dehydration in a care setting, we probably have to change that care setting, because those are, to me, are signs. Now, I know that these are difficult things, because how do you make somebody drink? How do you make sure that, you know, we heal those bed sores or avoid those bed sores? It is not easy. It's just like when I was talking to the social worker the other day. I know your job's not easy. Don't imagine that I'm thinking that it's easy. It's extremely difficult, but we got to deal with it. You know, if we're getting those things, that's a red flag. We need to either have where the setting that we're in step up the care, or we need to change the setting. Okay. And that, you know, and I realize there can be very difficult cases, but you know, I think those are the three things. So wandering, aggressive behavior, or falling, dehydration, bed sores, those are the three most common things that I say, okay, we need to be looking at the level of care and change the level of care. So what do we do about it? All right, so many of you may have seen this graph before. I like it. It's something that we've used from time to time to explain things. And so we call it the continuum care, or the elder care journey. And so on the top level, we have, you know, everybody's fine, the healthy senior, nothing wrong. And then we have some issues, maybe some limited functioning, maybe we have a little more care, even more care, and then significant, you know, maybe even 24-hour care, and then of course death. And we have to talk about that too, and making sure we have a plan in place for making sure everything's going to go smoothly upon death and all of that. But then, you know, what's interesting about this chart is we also look at, okay, what's our living setting? Are we living at home alone independently? Are we living at home with assistance? Are we in some kind of independent living or retirement community? Are we up to the level of assisted living, nursing home? And so, frankly, most of the time when people come to see me, and I'm going to try to use my pointers here, see if this works. Most of the time when people come to see me, they're in this range here, right? Somewhere between very limited function and significant limited function. Either, you know, that they really have some significant issues, or really probably need 24-hour care. And many times we're over here. And so this is the danger zone, right? When these don't line up properly, when we're not receiving the level of care that we need, this is a very significant danger zone. And so it's a danger zone to the family, it's a danger zone to the person, it's a danger zone to others. It's one of those things that we have to look at lining this up to say, okay, yes, everybody imagines they're going to be able to be independent and die with your boots on at age 100 after running on the beach the day before, right? I don't know if you run on the beach with boots, but the whole die with your boots on, the John Wayne, concept. Well, guess what? John Wayne did receive care in a care facility before his death. And there's actually some really interesting stories about that. But the idea is there's so often this is the situation, and it's so easy to just kind of look the other way or be in a little bit of denial about this. But this is where we really have to line it up and make sure that we're getting the appropriate level of care for the appropriate need. And then, of course, one of the things, obviously, that people come to talk to me about is, well, how in the heck are we going to pay for that? Bob, you can say all this, but how in the heck are we going to pay for it? Mom and dad aren't rich. Okay, great. Well, let's look at it, because, as the level of care goes up and the level of need goes up, the cost is going to go up, right? And so now we've got to look at different programs. So if you have unlimited money, great, pay for it. But then if not, we're going to have to look at veterans benefits, community services, obviously your income, Social Security, family caregivers. Then we're going to be looking at Medicare and Medicaid options. Okay. And so what my job is to line all these things up, making sure that we have the public benefits and public resources, that we can use the existing resources and line up to make sure that the person's getting the appropriate level of care, and that we can leverage what they have to make sure that they can afford it. Very important process there. Let's see if I can advance the slide here. There we go. Let's see, this might work. Okay, so this is just an interesting chart. I showed this to folks before. Interesting chart of the kind of the different levels of care and supervision and the typical cost. This came from an organization called seniorliving.org. And so I thought this was relevant because if you look, in-home senior care is the whole spectrum, right? It can go from a little bit in care, a level of care and supervision, to a lot, to 24-hour. It can go from low cost all the way up to a high cost, right? The in-home care runs the spectrum. The CCRC, which is the continuing care communities, we're going to come back to that in a minute because that's a little bit of a different. You see, that's kind of a more complete spectrum there. But we've got all these other options. And one of the things when families haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about this is knowing and looking at what options are out there. This is very much what I do on a regular basis because I wouldn't expect families to have thought or spent a lot of time on this. And I've learned through the years, it's funny because, my parents are very independent and taught me to be very independent and do things for myself. And my dad always changed his own oil and changed his own brakes. And I, for many, many years, changed my own oil and changed my own brakes. I don't do that anymore because I realized that there's people that have an expertise in it. And that they think about that very all the time, and they can do it very efficiently, and they can do it for a reasonable price. And I had the same thing as far as getting my taxes done. So for years and years, I'm like, okay, I'm a smart guy. I can do my own taxes, and I did it for years. And it got to the point that I realized that, there's people that think about this a heck of a lot more than me. They've done the research, they've thought things through, they think about all the options that I don't always think about, and I wouldn't have the reason to or the ability to. And so many years ago, I started using accountants to CPAs to do my taxes for me, and it made a big improvement in my life, I'll be honest with you. And it's the same thing when it comes to elder law. All right, so the people in my office, the team that we have, we're thinking about this stuff at least 40 hours a week. And I'll tell you, some of us probably a lot more than that. We probably dream about it sometimes. In fact, I know that's the case. So the bottom line is this is what we've devoted our lives to, and we've thought about this a lot. And there's options that you're not going to be aware of, and there's going to be processes and things like that that you haven't thought of. And so many times families are just, they kind of close in when this starts to come. They kind of close in and they say, you know what, we don't want to talk to a lawyer. We don't want to go, mom's not going to a nursing home. We're not going to look at any of this stuff. We're just going to kind of close in and put our head in the shell like a turtle, you know. And the reality is, yeah, you can do your Google research and you can do, you know, some time studying this, but you're not going to have the options and the resources of experts that have been thinking about this for a long time. And just kind of looking at those resources. So many people, when they first start thinking about this, they really look at it, and they most, you know, a lot of people, they walk into it with the idea that you're either home or you're in a nursing home. That's it. One or the other, home and independent, or a nursing home. That's it. There's nothing in between. And you can see, obviously, there's a whole lot in between. Look at all of these options that are available. And so, you know, but people use that term nursing home very loosely. But the bottom line is, there's so many different options, and try to make it suitable for your family circumstances and needs can be really important. So just know that it's okay to get advice, especially if you're getting good advice from people that really do have relationships and resources and have given all of this a whole lot of thought for a very long time, and we can come up with options for you that you may not have been able to think for of yourself, or would have no basis or no reason to know about. So just something to give some consideration to here. And then finally, I wanted to have this level of care. We're going to make this a little prettier in time here, but one of the things is that we start off on this chart with the different levels of care on the left-hand side. So we got home and independent. We got home with care, independent living, adult foster care, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing care. So that's what I call a nursing home, and then hospital. And then we go across here. Many of you will remember Rachel, who used to work with us and was, you know, really great at working with the clients on these things. And so she was the first. She created the first version of this this chart here, and kind of talking about the level of care. What types of caregivers do the different options have? Does it provide 24-hour care? Is there going to be medical staff there? Is it locked regarding wandering, or you know, a patient with dementia would need a locked facility? Can we get VA benefits to pay for it? The answer is yes. As you see, VA benefits, if we qualify for that, is going to be cash, and so we can use the VA to qualify for just about any of these programs. Then we've got, can Medicare and health insurance pay for it? Well, you see, unfortunately, Medicare and health insurance don't generally pay for continuing care like home care or assisted living or those types of things. So generally, that's going to be a short period of time in a nursing home, as long as we're receiving rehab. It's typically no more than 100 days, but almost always less than 100 days. And then, of course, hospitalization. But then we've got these 3 Medicaid options, and these 3 Medicaid options really, you know, are sometimes really good to think about. Now, remember, what we do in our practice is we make sure that you can qualify for Medicaid without losing everything. As soon as I say Medicaid, some people will confuse it with Medicare. And we just said Medicare, which you have if you're over 65, doesn't cover most of this, right? But if you have Medicaid, a lot of people will say, oh, well, I have to lose everything. I have to be poor. I have to go broke. And the answer is nope. There's lots of different options for us, protecting your house, protecting your income if you're married, protecting your assets, and still qualifying for Medicaid. So we've got the Medicaid PACE program, the program for all-inclusive care for the elderly. And that's a nice program. It's run regionally, so each region has their own company and or hospital system or whatever that runs it. Not all of them are hospital systems. We've got Medicaid My Choice Waiver, which is home care, but home care can be where you live. So if you live in independent living, that can be home care and independent living. If you live in assisted living, well, as long as the assisted living participates in the program, the possibility exists that you could get help with paying for the cost of care in assisted living. Waiver will never pay for room and board, okay? And then, of course, we've got Medicaid nursing home. Now, the thing about Medicaid nursing home is it's only going to be in a nursing home. So that's one of the things that people will sometimes, they're told, oh, well, you know, you got to spend down. We've heard that term, spend down, for Medicaid. And so families they hear that and they say, okay, well, we're just going to, you know, spend all this money and we're going to hire and pay down in assisted living and all of that. And then they'll just provide for that care. They'll bring family, you know, they'll bring caregivers in 24 hours a day, and mom and dad will get to stay in their house, and you know, they'll get on Medicaid because they spent down. Doesn't work that way. Okay, so the thing that Medicaid's gonna necessarily pay for, if we qualify for Medicaid, is gonna be nursing home. It's not gonna pay for room and board anywhere else other than a nursing home, except under very limited circumstances under PACE. But it's, so if we think that, you know, hey, you spend down, now we get care wherever we want it, we get care in whatever setting we want. No, it's going to be in a nursing home. Now, there's a lot of really nice nursing homes. I'm not going to, sometimes people hear that word nursing home and they think, oh, awful place. No, no, no. I mean, there are some awful places, no doubt about it. There are a few of the awful places, but most of them aren't. Most of them, they wouldn't be able to stay in business. You know, there was actually one that closed not too long ago because the people didn't think it was a great level of care and they had other options. Why would you go to a place that's not as good? So most of the places now realize that in order to be competitive, they have to keep it clean. They have to keep it smelling good. A lot of the places are brand new places or newer places that have lots of windows, lots of natural light, you know, activities, those types of things, and they're nursing homes, and all of them are going to take Medicaid. So when we get to the nursing home thing, what a lot of folks don't realize is most of them call themselves rehab, which is because that's a good big part of what they do, is they're doing, you know, rehab after hospital, so physical therapy, occupational therapy, things like that. But almost all of the nursing homes in Michigan that take rehab, that take Medicare and Blue Cross or your insurance, also take Medicaid. Now, they don't always tell you that. Why not? Because they make more money on the short-term care than they do on the long-term care. And that's just the way it is. And I'm not complaining about it. That's just the way it is. That's the way the system works, right? And so we just have to work within the system. And so the reality is, though, if they take Medicare, pretty good chance they take Medicaid. If they take rehab, if you could go there for rehab, they pretty good chance to take Medicaid. There's about 5 to 10%, I think it's closer to 5, but I haven't looked recently, 5 to 10% of the beds in Michigan that can take Medicare that don't take Medicaid. But it's, legally, any new beds and most of the existing beds, if you take Medicare, if you take rehab, you have to take Medicaid. And so, you know, we got to look at it on a case-by-case basis of what particular facility and things like that. But the bottom line is, they probably take Medicaid. If they're a rehab facility, if they're a nursing home, they probably take Medicaid. Not all of them, but most of them. Some of them are grandfathered in. So keep that in mind. So I wanted to see if there's any questions today. Right now, I don't see any questions. So we're going to give a second for anybody to see if there's any questions, and you can kind of just type them into the question box here. And I'm not seeing any right now, but remember, you can always email us. One of the easiest way to email us is at info, I-N-F-O, at mannorlaw.com. So Mannor Law is M-A-N-N-O-R, so 2 N's and an O, M-A-N-N-O-R law.com, info at mannorlaw.com. The reason why I like to give out that email address rather than mine in particular is that multiple people will see that email, and you'll get a quicker response probably if you send an email to that. But for anybody that's interested and needs more information about it, we also have an option for setting up an appointment with us. And so, of course, you can always call us. Don't hesitate to call us. Our number, you know, 810-694-9000 is our main office. We also have an office in Rochester Hills. Feel free to call us at any time. But you also have the ability to schedule online, where you schedule it at your convenience. And what will happen then is one of our great team members is going to call you. We're going to spend 15 minutes. You can interview us. We interview you, find out what's going on, and then from there we would schedule, you know, either a virtual appointment because of COVID, or an in-person appointment, whatever's best. Sometimes we can do the online or virtual appointments because we want to have lots of family members involved, and that's perfectly okay too. Sometimes people like to come into the office, and we have all of the protocols in place where we do ask you to wear a mask, and we wear a mask when we're doing the in-office appointments. We have dividers up now, the plexiglass dividers up in our offices. So we're very safe. If you want to come into the office, we can also do most things remotely at this point, and either over the phone or on the computer. But the first step is to schedule that 15-minute review. So this 15-minute review is you select a time and date, and someone will call you, and we'll just kind of find out what your issue is, and we'll go from there. So not seeing any questions, I will wrap things up today, but you should be getting an email. If you signed up for this webinar, you should be getting an email in the next little bit here, and that email will give you further instructions as to how to schedule that 15-minute appointment. And then secondly is it will allow you to forward. So sometime tomorrow, the replay of this video. So if you thought any of this information was something that you'd like to share with someone, a family member, a friend, someone that you think could use this information, please feel free to share the video, and the replay will be posted tomorrow, and then you can share it with anybody you think that would be it would be helpful for them to see this. So thank you for your time, and don't hesitate to contact us whenever you need us. Thanks.